Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at how much tougher vehicles are in 10th edition. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Vehicles are even tougher in the new edition of Warhammer 40,000. There's a few new things in the 41st millennia as terrifying as a headlong assault by waves of heavily armored tanks, which is why forces like the Astra Militarum love them so much. But recently, armored vehicles have been struggling to keep up with the relentless firepower of the average Warhammer 40,000 army can throw around. So one major focus in the new edition has been to make those units that should feel tough more meaningfully durable. And that mentality starts with the tanks. Almost every vehicle has received a bump in toughness. So while toughness 9 used to be the highest you'd ever see in a game, in the new edition you can find units like the orc stampa with a toughness as high as 14. All the weapons in the game have also been recalibrated to fit into the new scale, and we'll be talking about those tomorrow. So here we have the Rhino data slate, movement 12, toughness 9, save 3+, wounds 10, leadership 6+, OC 2. So we see the bump from toughness 7 on a Rhino up to toughness 9. And then we have a couple of weapon profiles here as well. So the arranged weapons, we have a hunter killer missile, which is obviously a one-shot missile. It has range 48, attacks 1, ballistic skill 2+. I do really like that. If it's going to be one shot, it should hit on a 2. Strength 14, AP -3, damage D6. So a hunter killer missile is going to wound the toughest thing in the game on a 4, and it's going to wound a lot of other things vehicle-wise on 3s. So very strong. It also has AP 3 and does a D6 damage. So interesting. I like that profile better. And then the Stormbolter, we see just like traditional Stormbolter profile, 24-inch range, attacks 2, ballistic skill 3+, strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. And then we see for melee weapons, actually, the armored tracks. So something coming back that used to be in the game a long time ago was like the viability of a vehicle without a real combat profile to still charge into combat and do damage. So with attacks 3, weapon skill 4+, strength 6, AP 0, damage 1, if you have some cheap chaff on an objective, this thing could reasonably charge in and kill 1 or 2 of those and potentially steal an objective. So I do like that. The idea that a tank would like charge into combat and do no damage doesn't really seem viable. And then we see a couple special abilities: Core, Deadly Demise D3, and Firing Deck 2. So I'm not sure exactly what those are. Maybe they'll go over them in the article here. But Deadly Demise probably is just when it explodes, like D3 damage or mortal wounds to nearby units. And then Firing Deck, I'm assuming, is like the equivalence of the old firing points, where you basically have like 2 models able to fire out of the vehicle. So faction abilities, Oath of Moment. So we saw what that was already. And then Self-Repair. Rhinos used to have this back in the day. At the end of your command phase, this model regains 1 lost wound. So I definitely like it. Very cool. Coming out of the gate with the toughness score to match the Titans of old, the reinforced Rhino actually sits towards the bottom end of the pool of hardy Space Marine vehicles. Its new toughness 9 leaves it significantly less vulnerable to most infantry, portable weapons, even melt-a-gun blasts. At the same time, the Rhino receives 2 core abilities common across many factions: Deadly Demise and Firing Deck. The first of these dictates how many mortal wounds are suffered by nearby units when a vehicle explodes, while the second shows how many embarked units can shoot from inside a transport. Both rules have previously existed in many different forms and are now condensed into core abilities for clarity. So I really like that. The universal abilities that a bunch of different vehicles could potentially have access to removes all the confusion of just naming stuff fancy names so it fits into the faction, but just causes more communication errors or confusion in actual game terms. If there's a universal ability that everybody has access to, it should just have one name, and that way everybody knows what it is all the time. And I really, really like that. As far as the firing points, that was something of old. As far as Deadly Demise, we're not sure now when a vehicle is destroyed. Is it just automatically going to explode? Is there still a role for it? So we're not sure exactly how powerful any of that stuff is without knowing the full spectrum of the rules. You'll also notice that most vehicles have an OC, objective control, of more than 1, meaning that ramming a depleted enemy infantry squad to muscle them off an objective is an entirely legitimate tactic. Yeah, so I really like that. I mean, there's a couple vehicles in the game that actually like were pretty decent in melee for like a tank. Like the Adeptus Sororitas had a tank that was pretty good. If you charge in with something like a Baneblade and pop a strat, you can do some serious damage with it. I think that's more realistic of where most things should be. So the idea of potentially a vehicle being able to steal an objective away from a small infantry squad makes perfect sense to me. All of this means there's now a lot more nuance to individual tanks, and vehicles are carved out of a niche in their own factions. Rest assured, though, the majority of vehicles and monsters are beefier than before. We're still not recommending staying out in the open against concentrated railgun fire, but you should find that armored behemoths make it through more firefights and can form a solid bastion in your army. To prove the point, here are a few more examples of Space Marine roster. So we have the Storm Speeder, 14-inch move, toughness 9 up from 7, maybe 6. And then save 3+, wounds 11, leadership 6+, OC 3. So OC 3 is pretty good. Obviously, this thing is designed to go and, do some recon missions, do a little bit of damage, and then potentially swoop in and steal an objective. I do really like that. And then next we see the Gladiator, move 10, toughness 10, save 3+, wounds 12, leadership 6+, OC 3. So I'm not sure if the OC comes specifically just from like the size of the vehicle or how they determine that. But again, we see a higher OC value on this, and then we see toughness 10 on this bad boy. And then if we beef it up one more, we get the Repulsor, move 10, toughness 12, save 3+, wounds 16, leadership 6+, OC 5 on this bad boy. So very, very cool. We're definitely getting like more of an idea as to what to expect from these vehicles. Now a quick message from today's sponsor. CMO Games has been selling Games Workshop products online for over 20 years. They carry the full line of Games Workshop products, including Warhammer 40,000, Age of Sigmar, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, paint tools, and more. Almost all Games Workshop products are priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games takes pre-orders for most Games Workshop products released at their earliest date possible. 12:01 a.m. on Saturday, they go live. Most of these pre-order products are also priced at 15% off MSRP. CMO Games offer free shipping in the US 48 with an order of $50 or more. Their customer service is top-notch and they ship most orders within 24 hours. Visit CMOGames.com using the affiliate link in the description and let them know that you heard about CMO Games from Warhammer Man. Now back to the video. So they still have strong saves, and now the toughness factor is a lot more. Because before they were basically restricted to like a vehicle that's light being 7 toughness, a vehicle that's medium being 8 toughness, and a vehicle that's heavy being 9 toughness. So now it appears that, we're more having like 7 to 14 as like the range of toughnesses. So that gives them substantially more variability in how strong they can make something without having to just crank up the wounds or give it crazy saves or something like that. So I think part of the issue will definitely be resolved with this, or at least it'll put us in the right direction. In a lot of cases, it's probably not going to change, but I'm sure there's some specific weapons that are going to hit hard against certain vehicles, but be substantially worse against like the top tier vehicles. And I think that's how it should be. A lot of vehicles used to suffer from characteristics that degraded as they took damage. Most of those now simply suffer a penalty to their hit rolls when reduced to 1/3 of their starting wounds, leaving big vehicles and monsters in the fight to the last. And many vehicles don't degrade at all. We intentionally wanted to only keep these when they felt meaningful. So there is a note down here, provided you roll a 6 on death as before. So vehicles only exploding on 6s still. So very interesting. I like the changes overall. I like that they are addressing a lot of like the community issues here. There should be substantially more durability for something like a Land Raider over a Rhino, and there should definitely be like some tiers along the way. I think taking away degradation helps out vehicles a lot, and then having like minimal degradation once you're down to 1/3 of wounds, and then potentially just getting like a -1 to hit or something like that is much more realistic. Because part of the issue with vehicles over like non-degrading units is that you can do a minimal amount of damage to them and substantially reduce their effectiveness. As where with a regular unit that doesn't degrade, you can do 99% of the damage to them, but if you don't finish off the unit, it doesn't degrade. So with a unit of like 10 troops or something like that, obviously as you kill off troopers, the unit gets less effective, less efficient. With a vehicle, it would degrade and become less effective and less efficient, but you still had your one piece to game with. But then certain things that fell under that 9 wound, but a single model, had a massive advantage because you could do 8 wounds to them. They're on their very last thread of life, but they're still fully effective. And I think that made vehicles that degrade substantially worse, the same way that if a character model had 9 wounds before, they were substantially better than if they got that extra wound, but now suddenly they could be targeted. So we'll see how this all plays out. But so far, I like what I see here. It seems like they have really done what they said they were going to do with 9th edition, which was make the game more fun, but less complicated. So as long as they keep away from the rules bloat and power creep that we've seen over pretty much the existence of Warhammer 40k, honestly, I'm very, very optimistic about this. So let me know what you think. What are you most excited about? Do you have any concerns or questions that you're really itching to get answered here? Going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the video. Check out the link in the description to save 15%. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and let's go ahead and just wrap up 9th. I think we're all done with it. Let's get this 10th rolling, and I'm out of here.